Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to adjust the actual heights of all of the points that make up the mesh. Now, just before we start with, to give you an appreciation of what height they're at the moment, we've done all of this on AHD. So all of this, the surfaces of this whole mesh at the moment should be at 0 meters AHD. Let's check that out. So if we were to drop down our project browser and open up your elevations and open up any of the elevations, I'll go to this north elevation here. The AHD level is not showing up with a level line. That's because, I'll show you why that is. If we drop this down again and right click on top of stories to get back to where we were, story settings, you can see that it's unchecked. The level marker is unchecked. If we were to check that and click OK, you can see that we've now got a level marker running through AHD 0, and all of the surface of that mesh that we created is on 0 AHD. Now, we don't normally want a level marker line for AHD, it's just a datum point. So I'm just going to go back into again, right click on stories, story settings, and uncheck that checkbox so that we don't get a level marker. And click OK, and the level marker disappears. So you can see that the surface of our mesh that we've created is at 0 AHD. So I'm going to go back to AHD again, stories AHD. And so what we've got is we've got some contour information that says this part of the mesh is at 9 meters AHD, this part of the mesh is at 10 meters AHD, and so on and so forth. So let's make those changes to the mesh. So if you were to click on the mesh and click on one of these internal points is probably the best. So say this one here, for example. Click on there, click on it until you get the pet tool opening up, and then change the pet tool to this Z height elevate mesh point icon here. And we want to change that height. This is the 10 meter contour line here. So we want to change that height there to 10,000. 10,000 for 10 meters. Leave it at to mesh reference plane and click apply to all, and then click OK. Now all of those points now will have changed to 10 meters AHD. Okay, so if we wanted to visualize the change of these points now going to 10 meters AHD, well, a couple of things we could do, I suppose. You could click on any one of those points now and you should see its height reference. Click cancel. If I escape to get out of that, so if I, for instance, click on any other point down here and change the height elevate mesh point there, you can see that they're still 0. So I'm going to cancel, and so on and so forth. The other way we could check that we have made some changes to this end of the property is if we had a look at one of the elevations. Now this time I'll go to the south elevation, so I'm looking from the downward direction up. If we go to the project browser and open up the south elevation here, double click, we can see then we've got this property line now obviously sloping from one end of the property from the other, where it is 10 meters at one end down to 0 AHD at the moment at the other end. Okay, so we'll just go back now to look at the AHD story level. So dropping down, going to the AHD story level, double click, and we'll make those changes now to this contour line over here. So selecting the mesh and then selecting one of these internal points on that contour line, select it again, changing till you've got the elevate mesh point in the pet tool, and then changing this elevation here. This is the 9 meter contour, So all of these are going to change to 9,000. Now by clicking apply to all, it will make all of those joined points on that line all go up to 9,000. If we unclicked apply to all, it would just change the one point that we're changing. So we'll click that apply to all. Now apply to all only applies to all the joined points on the contour line. So if we click OK to that, all of those points now should have gone to AHD 9 meters. So if I just click out of that again to deselect, we've got a little bit more to do. We've got another one down here. So once again, click on the mesh, click on one of these internal points. I seem to have to click it twice to get it to happen. Make sure we're in the pet tool, elevate mesh point here, and then change the height. That's also a 9 meter contour, by the way. So we're going to change that to 9,000. Apply to all and click OK. Okay, now I've got a few more points to do. We'll have to also change, as well as changing all of the contour line points, there's going to be a point in each corner that we'll need to change the appropriate height. Now everything's pretty flat here, obviously, because if there's a 9 meter contour and another 9 meter contour, that means that the ground's probably pretty flat in between those two contour lines. So I'm going to make this point here, which I'll select, and I seem to have to once again select it twice to get it to work. Now this is a corner point. We still want to make sure, different pet tool now because it's a corner point, but we still want to make sure we're on the elevate mesh point, and we're going to change that, I think, also to 9,000. Now it's recognised that it's a corner point and it's not connected to others, so it's automatically unchecked apply to all for us. Probably pretty important you make sure that is unchecked, because otherwise it might apply it to all others around the corners, etc. So we'll just go 9,000 to that, and that'll make these points 9 meters, these points 9 meters, and this corner point now will also be 9 meters. I'm going to do the same up the top here to this one. Change that to 9,000 also. Clearing, apply to all. It's by default it's cleared, so you don't have to check that. And click OK to that. Now up the top here, I think this one down in this corner here, this edge of the site, once again this is a 10 meter contour line, and this is also a 10 meter contour line. So this corner point to me looks like it's probably going to be fairly close to 10 meters as well. So for our purposes, and once again, if you had a real survey information, you'd probably have real figures on this. But for our purposes, we'll presume that that's also 10 meters at that point. So we're going 10,000 there. Click OK. Now this one up here, if that's a 9 meter contour there, and that's a 10 meter contour there, we've got the next contour up, which will be an 11 meter contour just sneaking in up through here. So I would suggest that this point here, not quite 11 meters, so I might make that one 10,900 and click OK. So we've now changed all the mesh points. If you clicked on 3D, you'll now have a different way of visualizing the heights of the mesh that we've changed. Okay, so it's time to do a save there.